Alright, today I'm going to show you 8 photos, and each one of them isn't exactly normal. In fact, they're a bit disturbing. The incident in the Sumbora cave. Sum Bora, a 28-year-old farmer living in Battambang province, Cambodia, frequently risked his life, venturing into the caves of Mount Chakrai to collect bat guano, a natural fertilizer considered valuable by local residents. This dangerous work had become a part of his life and helped support his entire family. But in August 2019, on a Sunday, while he continued his guano collecting routine, the area near the cave entrance, where he had previously harvested, had already been depleted. This forced him to go deeper into the cave. As he ventured further inside, he spotted a large amount of guano ahead, using his flashlight. While squeezing through a narrow passage in the cave, Sum Bora accidentally dropped his flashlight, the only source of light helping him navigate in the darkness. Retrieving the flashlight became essential before he could return home. However, in his attempt to retrieve it, he tragically slipped and got stuck between 2 large boulders. Despite his best efforts, he couldn't free himself and became trapped in a tight position, surrounded by the pitch black and suffocating confines of the cave. Sum Bora remained stuck for 4 days, from Sunday to Wednesday, under extreme conditions. No light, no water, and no food. He thought about death and even considered suicide if he had a knife, but being tightly wedged left him completely helpless. When his family realized he hadn't returned after 2 days of collecting guano, they began to worry. By Tuesday, his older brother joined the search and eventually discovered that Sum Bora was trapped inside the cave. He immediately alerted local authorities. News of the incident spread quickly, prompting a large-scale rescue operation. Around 200 people, including elite rescue teams, were mobilized. They were flown to the site by helicopter. After 10 hours of relentless effort, including breaking through part of the cave, Sum Bora was finally rescued at around 6:00 p.m. on Wednesday. He was immediately taken to the hospital with injuries to his head, knees, and chest. The death of Luo Changqing during the 2019 Hong Kong protests. On November 13th, 2019, in Shengshui, Hong Kong, Luo Changqing, a 70-year-old sanitation worker contracted by the Hong Kong Food and Environmental Hygiene Department, was assigned that day to clean Luan Road outside the North District Town Hall. That morning, he went about his job as usual, but during his lunch break, he noticed a group of young people about 300 meters away who were also clearing bricks from Luan Road. Seeing these young people taking responsibility for the environment, he thought it was admirable and went over to help. However, upon arriving, he decided to stop when he saw a group of masked individuals dressed in black approaching the young people. It didn't appear to be a normal conversation. It looked more like an argument, perhaps even a confrontation. The young people cleaning bricks began shouting and eventually chased off the masked group. But just 5 minutes later, the group in black returned with greater numbers. They took to the middle of the road and continued arguing. The argument escalated quickly, and soon people from both sides began pushing and shoving. Then they started picking up bricks from the street and throwing them at each other. In the midst of the chaos and flying bricks, Luo Changqing took out his phone and began filming, likely intending to share the footage on social media. At that moment, a teenager from the black-clad group hurled a brick forcefully, and tragically, it struck Luo in the head. He collapsed instantly and lay motionless. After the clash ended, nearby residents came to check on him and, unfortunately, found that he had died. In a photograph taken at the scene, the figure lying on the ground was identified as Luo. Police launched an investigation and arrested 5 suspects, including 2 teenagers, 16-year-old Chan Yinting and 15-year-old Kelvin Lao Chlung. They were initially charged with murder, but the court later reduced the charge to manslaughter. In the end, they were sentenced to 5.5 years in prison for rioting. From what I understand, the unrest stemmed from an extradition bill proposed by the government. This bill would have allowed suspects to be extradited from Hong Kong to mainland China for trial. Many Hong Kongers feared that the law would undermine their freedoms and legal protections, which had been guaranteed under the one country, two systems framework after Hong Kong was handed back to China in 1997. They worried that China might abuse the law to silence dissent. Back to Luo's story. His death was shocking and significant. It marked the first time a person had died at the hands of a protester during the demonstrations. His death became a powerful symbol, highlighting just how dangerous the protests had become. The public expressed their grief quickly. More than 100,000 people, including celebrities from mainland China, donated to support his family. A memorial was held on November 15th, but just a week later, it was vandalized by unknown individuals, adding another layer of sorrow to an already tragic event. The disappearance of Jennifer Kesse. The story begins with Jennifer Kesse, a 24-year-old young woman living in Orlando, Florida. Despite her age, she had a stable life and a solid career in financial management at a timeshare investment company. Thanks to her job, she was able to purchase a condo at the Mosaic at Millennia Complex. Everything in her life seemed to be going well. One slightly troubling detail, though, was the construction site near her home. Every morning on her way to work, she had to walk past it, and being an attractive woman, she often received unwanted stares from the construction workers there. One day, after coming home from work, she stopped by a bar and met Rob Allen, who lived in Fort Lauderdale, about a 3-hour drive from Orlando. After chatting for a while, the two started dating. During their relationship, Jennifer would text Rob every morning without fail, something that made him feel deeply cared for. But on the morning of January 24th, 2006, Rob didn't receive his usual text. While heading to the parking lot to go to work, he got a call from Jennifer's parents. They told him they couldn't reach her and were worried. Everyone rushed to Jennifer's apartment. With the help of the building manager, they unlocked the door, but Jennifer was nowhere to be found. The apartment looked completely normal. There were no signs of a struggle, nothing suspicious. It was as if she had just vanished. Her loved ones quickly called the police. The police began an investigation, but at first, there were no leads. The case began to stall until they received a call from a woman reporting that a car had been sitting in front of her home for several days without moving. The police rushed to Huntington on the Green, and sure enough, it was Jennifer's car. Investigators reviewed surveillance footage from the area. The footage showed an unidentified person parking Jennifer's car at around 12:00 p.m. on January 24th. However, the individual's face was obscured by a gatepost, making identification impossible. This footage was released in 2007, but unfortunately, it didn't lead to any breakthroughs. Several theories have been proposed, ranging from Jennifer being abducted from her condo, to being taken while on her way to work, to a possible connection with the construction workers at the complex. Still, no official suspect has ever been identified, and the surveillance footage remains the most significant clue, yet not enough to solve the case. Jennifer's family, especially her father Drew Kesse, has spent over $700,000 trying to uncover the truth. They still hold out hope that DNA evidence might someday bring a breakthrough. To this day, Jennifer Kesse's disappearance remains a mystery. The Ruby Ridge incident. The story begins with Randy Weaver, a former US Army veteran. He and his wife, Vicky, along with their 4 children, 16-year-old Sarah Weaver, 14-year-old Samuel Weaver, around 10-year-old Rachel Weaver, and their youngest daughter, 10-month-old Elisheba Weaver, had moved to Ruby Ridge, Idaho, to live in isolation. They believed that the US government was becoming increasingly corrupt, and especially that the end of the world was near, so they wanted to live out the rest of their days in peace. Feeling unsafe, Randy Weaver stockpiled a large number of guns in their home. As a former soldier, purchasing and assembling firearms came easily to him. The Weaver family lived without electricity, running water, or modern conveniences, surviving mostly through hunting, farming, and natural resources. During his time in the military, Randy had become involved with a group called Aryan Nations, a white separatist and anti-government organization that was prominent in the United States during the 1980s. Because of this affiliation, members of the group were often under police surveillance. One day, while attending a meeting of Aryan Nations, Randy was approached by a man named Kenneth Fadley. After chatting for a while, Fadley asked Randy if he sold guns, saying he was interested in buying. Randy replied that he did, and that he had plenty of guns at home. He also mentioned that he had the ability to assemble weapons due to his military background. What Randy didn't know was that Kenneth Fadley was an undercover federal agent investigating Aryan Nations. Their conversation, especially the parts involving weapons, was secretly recorded. Fadley later used this recording as leverage, claiming that Randy Weaver was in illegal possession of firearms and threatening arrest. But what law enforcement really wanted was information about the Aryan Nations organization. Randy Weaver, however, was stubborn. He refused to cooperate and told the agent he considered him part of the corrupt system. He then walked away. Authorities decided to bring him to court. However, on the day he was scheduled to appear, February 20th, 1992, he didn't show up. This was because the probation officer had mistakenly mailed a letter listing the court date as March 20th instead. The misunderstanding led the authorities to believe Randy was willfully evading the law, and a warrant was issued for his arrest, along with additional charges for failure to appear. That same day, Randy's close friend Kevin Harris came over to visit. From the window, they saw several plainclothes FBI agents approaching the property. Harris looked worried, but Randy handed him a rifle and told him to use it for self-defense. He also gave a firearm to his son. A shootout erupted. Tragically, Randy's son was shot and killed immediately. At the same time, a sniper positioned on a nearby hill fired a shot that struck Vicky Weaver, who was holding their baby at the time. She was killed instantly, although the child miraculously survived. After a prolonged standoff, a negotiator was finally brought in to speak with the Weavers and urged them to surrender. The entire area had been surrounded by law enforcement. Eventually, Randy Weaver agreed to give himself up. This is an image of Randy holding his youngest daughter daughter in his arms at the moment of surrender. Inside the cabin, authorities found a large cache of weapons. Here is an image of Vicky Weaver, Randy's wife. Because she was unarmed when she was shot and killed, the FBI's actions were considered a serious violation of protocol and became the most controversial aspect of the Ruby Ridge standoff. The photo of Sarah Funk. The story begins with Nikos Metaxas, a Cypriot army captain born in 1984. In 2016, he was using online dating sites under the nickname Orestes to meet women, mostly foreign women. By chance, he started chatting with a single mother named Mary Rose Tiburcio, 38 years old, from the Philippines, and her 6-year-old daughter, Sierra Grace Granze. Like many other immigrants, Mary Rose worked a labour job as a domestic helper for a family in Cyprus. The two talked over many days, and she shared that she lived in isolation, with few friends, no family, and little social support in Cyprus. Hearing her story, Metaxas expressed sympathy and concern, promising love and even offering to support her financially. After several days of chatting, they agreed to meet in person. Metaxas arranged a meeting at a private residence and invited her there. Because she was a migrant worker with few social connections, she agreed to go without much hesitation or suspicion. On the day of the meeting, Mary Rose brought her daughter along, wanting to introduce her to Metaxas. The conversation didn't last long. Suddenly, Metaxas strangled Mary Rose and her daughter with his hands, killing them both on the spot. After murdering the mother and daughter, Metaxas placed Mary Rose's body in a suitcase, tied it with concrete blocks to ensure it would sink. Both suitcases, containing the bodies of Mary Rose and Sierra, were dumped into the Red Lake near the Mitzro mine, a toxic lake filled with acidic water from an old copper mining operation. This lake is located in a remote area, rarely visited, which allowed Metaxas to conceal the crime for a long time. Then in 2017, a YouTuber named Sarah Funk, with over 100,000 followers, posted a video of her trip to the Red Lake in Mitsero, Cyprus. In the frame, she is seen sitting beside the deep red, acidic water when a suitcase unexpectedly appears in the shot. Her boyfriend joked, "This is exactly how murder mystery episodes start." Sarah added, "I just feel like death is in the air." 2 years later, in 2019, Nikos Metaxas was arrested and confessed to murdering 7 people, 5 women and 2 children, all of whom were foreigners. The suitcase seen in Sarah's video was later identified as one of the places where Metaxas had hidden his victims' bodies. After learning the truth, Sarah wrote on her blog, "It's horrifying, and I'm heartbroken for the victims' families." Metaxas' motive remains a mystery. At first, he told investigators that he killed 2 women and their daughters because he believed they were exploiting his own daughter, claiming he wanted to punish them and free the children. But in court, in June 2019, he said he didn't understand why he committed the crimes and only apologised to the victims' families. Metaxas was sentenced to 7 life sentences, the harshest penalty ever given in the history of Cyprus. The photo of Jolee Callan. The story begins with Jolee Callan, 18 years old, and her boyfriend, Loren Bunner, 20 years old. Their relationship seemed normal at first, until Jolee began to notice that Bunner had a controlling personality. He wanted her to spend all her time with him and his friends. Over time, the relationship became tense, and Jolee eventually decided to break up with him. Jolee then started a new romantic relationship, which devastated Bunner. He saw her as a traitor and began to beg and plead with her to take him back. But Jolee refused and confided in her father, Michael Joe Callan, that she was struggling in life. On August 20th, 2015, Bunner begged her one last time and convinced her to go on a hiking trip with him at Chehalis State Park in Alabama, hoping to rekindle their relationship. She agreed to go with him. On Instagram, Bunner posted moments from the trip, Jolee sitting in the car with a dog on her lap, with the caption, "On our way to hike." There were other sweet photos, including one final image of Jolee standing on a cliff, taken by Bunner as a keepsake. In the picture, Jolee is seen enjoying the fresh air, immersed in the mist. But suddenly, Bunner pulled out a bear claw 22 caliber pistol and shot Jolee in the back of the head. After she collapsed, he rolled her over and fired another shot between her eyes. Then, he pushed her body off the cliff, which was about 40 feet high. Yes, the photo you are looking at is the last moment Jolee was alive. After the murder, Bunner left the scene by car and drove to exit 179 off Interstate 20 near Oxford, Alabama. Around 6 p.m. that same day, he calmly called 911 and confessed that he had killed his ex-girlfriend. He then pulled over and waited for the police to arrive and arrest him. On July 13th, 2017, Bunner pleaded guilty to murder in court. He was sentenced to 52 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 15 years. The scuba diving photo. The story begins with Gabe Watson and Tina Watson, an American couple who got married in 2003. Gabe Watson was an experienced diver, certified in search and rescue. He came up with the idea of taking his newlywed wife, Tina, scuba diving at the Great Barrier Reef to explore a sunken ship during their honeymoon. Tina agreed to join him. Before the trip, Gabe repeatedly pressured Tina to change her life insurance policy. Specifically, he asked her to increase the policy's payout, the amount the insurance company would pay out in case of her death, and to name Gabe as the sole beneficiary. This meant Gabe would receive all the money if Tina died. Since they had been married for less than 11 days and their relationship was still warm and affectionate, Tina agreed. On October 22nd, 2003, at a dive site near the shipwreck, Gabe and Tina began their romantic honeymoon adventure. While diving and exploring the wreck, other divers and the guide were not paying close attention. Gabe took advantage of the moment to carry out his plan. He turned off Tina's oxygen tank, cutting off her air supply. As Tina panicked and tried to grab Gabe's regulator for air, he held her underwater, preventing her from surfacing. With his extensive diving and rescue experience, Gabe knew full well that this action would cause Tina to lose consciousness from oxygen deprivation. Once she passed out, Gabe turned her tank back on and let her sink to the ocean floor at a depth of about 30 meters. Meanwhile, a photographer diving with the group accidentally captured an image of Tina's lifeless body lying motionless on the seabed. This photo later became crucial evidence of the crime scene. After letting her sink, Gabe resurfaced and signaled that something had gone wrong. He pretended to call for help from the guide and other divers. They managed to pull Tina to the surface, but tragically, she had already passed away. The first person Gabe contacted after her death wasn't Tina's family, it was the insurance company to claim the benefits. An investigation soon followed and revealed several suspicious details. Testimonies from other divers confirmed that Gabe showed no real panic or effort to save his wife, despite having the skills to do so. His behaviour was described as strangely calm. The defence argued that Gabe may have panicked upon seeing Tina in distress and made a poor decision to surface instead of rescuing her. However, the evidence, including dive computer data, the underwater photo, and testimony regarding the life insurance policy, leaned heavily toward the prosecution's argument that Gabe acted deliberately. In the end, Gabe was convicted of manslaughter instead of murder, due to challenges in proving intent beyond a reasonable doubt. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison in Australia, a sentence many, including Tina's family, believed was far too lenient for the severity of the crime. Best friend from hell. The story begins with Cheyenne Antoine and Brittany Gargole, two 18-year-old girls who were best friends living in Saskatoon, Canada. On March 24th, 2015, the two took a selfie together, both smiling brightly, with Antoine wearing a distinctive blue belt with a large buckle. Later that evening, Antoine and Gargole went bar hopping in Saskatoon to enjoy their youth. That night, both girls drank alcohol and used marijuana, which led to rising tensions. While intoxicated, a heated argument broke out between them. In a fit of rage, Antoine used the very same blue belt she had worn in the selfie to strangle Gargole. After the killing, Antoine dragged her friend's body to a roadside near Cedar Villa Estates, south of Saskatoon, and left her there, cold and without shoes. On the morning of March 25th, 2015, a passerby discovered Brittany Gargole's lifeless body on the side of Valley Road. The autopsy confirmed that she had died from strangulation, and a blue belt with a large buckle was found near her body. The police began their investigation. The first person they questioned was Antoine. She told police that after their argument, she and Gargole had separated at a bar, and Gargole had left with a strange man while she went to her uncle's house. Antoine even posted on Brittany's Facebook wall, writing, "Where are you? Haven't heard from you. Hope you made it home safe." But police quickly noticed that the belt found at the crime scene matched the one Antoine had worn in the Facebook selfie. A timeline built from social media posts and the girl's activity history revealed that Antoine's story didn't add up. The investigation lasted nearly 2 years, until a turning point came when a witness stepped forward. This person testified that Antoine had once admitted, while drunk, that she had strangled Gargole. The belt, the selfie, and the witness testimony formed a chain of undeniable evidence. In March 2017, Cheyenne Antoine was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. By January 2018, during a preliminary hearing, Antoine unexpectedly changed her plea and admitted guilt to manslaughter, a lesser charge than second-degree murder. In court, she expressed deep remorse, saying, "I will never forgive myself. Nothing I say or do will bring her back. I am so sorry. This shouldn't have happened." Antoine claimed she blacked out from intoxication and didn't remember the details of her actions, suggesting the incident was impulsive rather than premeditated. Prosecutors and the defence agreed to recommend a 7-year sentence, and Judge Marilyn Gray accepted the plea, taking into account Antoine's remorse and confession. With credit for time already served, Antoine began her rehabilitation journey in prison. By 2022, after serving about 4 years, Antoine was released on parole. However, her reintegration into society did not go smoothly. Recent reports in February 2025 revealed that Antoine had violated her parole conditions, including drug use, breaking curfew, and involvement in a car theft that led to a high-speed police chase. Because of these violations, she was rearrested and returned to custody to continue serving her sentence. Alright, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching.